Hi, my name is David Rowan. I'm a master practitioner and trainer of modern applied psychology, which is an eclectic blend of NLP and hypnotherapy, and a field called psychobiology, which explores a relationship between mind and body via language and the nervous system. And this short video clip is just a little discussion about some ways of being able to reduce anxiety and stress or even distress in a non-verbal way, using other facets of the nervous system apart from words. And for example, you can try this. There's more than likely a piece of music or a style of music that you've heard that whenever you hear it, it kind of just automatically puts you in a good mood. You know, just spend a moment, see if you can identify either a song or a style of music that just the mere thought of it begins to kind of put you into a really good mood. So like you could have the worst day in the world, you've lost a lottery ticket, a deep friend you've had an argument with, and that kind of stuff. And then you'd switch the radio on or you walk past the shop and you hear this piece of music playing, and all of a sudden just the emotions go into like being in a really good mood. Well, it's not the case that the piece of music does that specifically, because other people can hear the same piece of music and it doesn't put them in a good mood. But the reason it does it for you is that at some point between, when you were first born and now, when you were really small, 45 seconds old, when you were first born, you didn't know that there'd be a piece of music that would always make you feel good. But between then and now, somehow this has begun to happen. And what happens is that our nervous system correlates data, sights, sounds, tastes, and smells, and it packages them together in the things that we call experience. And the way that we as human beings navigate life is that by every time we encounter something new, we're inclined to bundle all of the neurological stimulus into the package of that and say, this means this emotion. So, for example, if you had a marvelous, wonderful day sometime, maybe when you were a child and you're on the beach and, the sun's just beginning to go down and you've had a nice day and ice cream and you maybe see a kite and hear a dog barking in the distance. All of those things, the smell of the salt on the air, become packaged into that feeling good. And if there happened to be a radio playing nearby, that song also becomes part of the experience. So that later on in life, even 20, 30, 40 years later, if you hear that song on the radio or smell sea air, or even just think of the sound of the sea and waves, automatically it takes you back into that experience, because by replaying one element of the memory, the entire memory becomes available. Now, knowing this can be useful. For example, somebody came to see me about 15 years ago with a very, very sad situation. Their daughter was about 3 or 4 years old and had a neurological condition, and the poor girl's immune system was collapsing. And at this stage, she'd already become fully blind and was beginning to go deaf. And of course, this little girl had a great deal of anxiety, as I'm sure you can imagine. And they asked me, can you help? Can you do anything? And I kind of thought about it and I said, well, not directly, but I think there's something you can definitely do. And what I instructed the parents to do was book up a double length or, a double time aromatherapy massage for their daughter, and to instruct the masseur to only use one type of smell. It had to be a smell that was readily available in, their local area, so they could buy quantities of it, and that it mustn't be a blended smell, just be a singular kind of smell that the aromatherapist is going to use. And prior to going to the session, the parents were instructed to buy oil burners, maybe 2 or 3 that they could put around the house, so they can infuse the house with the smell. But to not do that until the aromatherapy session was underway for the first time. So this little girl, who couldn't see, but she could only really feel and she could hear a little bit, had a 2-hour session of being pampered and gently massaged with a particular smell. Now, the sensation of that smell began to be bound up with the sensation of that relaxation and those gentle, caring hands. Meanwhile, the parents for the very first time, made the house smell of that scent, so that when the child came home from that massage and walked back into the house again, the house now smelled like the sensation of the massage, and so that it would bring to the surface the memory of being massaged in that way, in the same way that a piece of music makes you feel good. And a few years later, a different person came to see me, and they had a daughter with cerebral palsy, who occasionally would find like an anxiety build up inside her that made it very, very difficult for her to kind of settle and be even comfortable in her own skin. And so I was talking about this and saying, so is this permanent? Is she always in distress? And they said, well, pretty much. And I heard that phrase, pretty much, and that let me know, there's a chink. There's just maybe a slither of light. There's a moment when this distress diminishes. And I said, oh, what's the occasion or occasions when the distress is absent or much reduced? And they said, oh, just after a bath. Just after a bath. Yes, well, whenever, just after a bath, she's really relaxed. But then by the time she goes into, she's dried and she goes to bed, then, she's anxious again. I said, I have an idea. So I told her the story that we'd done, and suggested that they buy kind of, not necessarily an oil burner, because around children, it might get upset. But you can get, for example, oil infusers that sit on the edge of a radiator. And so the heat of the radiator causes the aromatherapy oil to diffuse, or even some kind of bland potpourri doused in the oil, so that it, just impregnates the air with the smell. And I said to her, for about 3 to 6 months, give it a long period of time, put this smell in the bathroom only at bath time and nowhere else in the house at all, no matter how nice it is or how pleasant it is. So select an oil of a smell that you like and then put it in the bathroom for this period of time. And after you're pretty sure that the smell has become sort of associated with the relaxation that comes with a bath, then for the first time have the smell in the bedroom during the bath, so that when your daughter comes out of the bath, as she goes into the bedroom smells like the bathroom, and therefore hopefully the sense of relaxation that you find in the bathroom will transfer itself into the bedroom. And once you've checked that that's established, then continue to do the same. Have the smell in the bathroom, the smell in the bedroom, but only after bath, right? And after a while, the two things will become associated with one another. And once that begins, then you can begin to allow other areas of the house to smell of the relaxing, calming smell. And what will happen then is that eventually the life, the life in the flat, wherever your daughter goes, it will always smell like the smell of relaxation, apart from when you're cooking, But that will encourage your daughter to continue experiencing an ongoing sense of relaxation, and that did work. And you can do this kind of technique for other things as well. I'm going to explain how this works a bit more in the second video of this 3-part set. The third part will talk about how to deeply relax using words, how to teach your unconscious to be able to access a state of relaxation and a lack of anxiety literally in seconds. But another thing that can be done that's useful with this idea of transferring a sensation from one context to another is when somebody's studying for exams. What tends to happen is you get a room full of children and teach them stuff in a state of boredom. There's a phenomenon called state-dependent memory, which suggests that the mood and the frame of mind the person's in at the time of receiving new information becomes encoded or bound with the emotional state, and the information gets locked together. For example, if you tell someone something new when they're very drunk, when they're sober, they can't remember what you told them because the information is locked into the drunk state, which is very different to being sober, right? So the only way to get them to remember the information is to get them drunk again, and then they can remember it. So if you get a bunch of kids and you tell them new information when they're bored or listless, and then ask them to recall it in an exam, which is a state of hyper-anxiety, they're so different emotionally, it's like being drunk and sober. So the information isn't accessible. So one thing you can do is get a kind of a gentle piece of music. For example, Ein Klein Nacht music, which is a Mozart piece, and just have it playing very, very quietly in the background, almost imperceptibly, right? While a person is studying or revising, so that that sound becomes bound up with the information, but also the receipt of the information. And then on the way to an exam, play it in the car, have it on your iPod, such that when the person's in the exam itself and they find that they get mind blocked and start to panic and worry, instead of going into a narrative of, remember what it is, I can't remember what it is, come on you idiot, remember what it is, and therefore increasing the anxiety, which shuts memory systems down, to do something completely different. And that is to just merely think of the Mozart music and play it in your mind. And because you're thinking of the music, your mind goes back into the state that it was in when the information was received, and you will increase the chance of being able to recall the information. And so this is just how to use neurology and to shuffle yourself from one state or emotion to another at will, and to be able to kind of set things up in life so that certain moods can transfer. You know, if there's some favorite food, for example, that someone in your family really loves, serve them your favorite food and maybe have a piece of music playing at the same time that you don't usually play. And the two things start to get bound up together. And now you have the taste of feeling good and the sound of feeling good. And then you can replay both of those at will, and it'll encourage the person to go into a nice frame of mind or a comfortable mood. So as humans, we switch ourselves in and out of moods depending on things that are associated with each of those things. You know, quite literally, when we're down, we might play the blues, but it can work the other way around. Sometimes hearing the blues can take you down. So it all depends on what constitutes good music for you and what constitutes something that's bluesy or depressing for you. And that will vary from person to person. You know, if somebody meets somebody in a wild weekend and they have a rapturous time of making love in this incredible hedonistic weekend, and depressing music is played all the time, they'll associate depressing music with a fantastic time. And so for them, that music won't be depressing. It will be the sound of, a wonderful moment. So it's almost impossible to say that certain music is depressing or certain music is uplifting, because we each have a subjective experience, a subjective idea to it. But you can help other people to flow into nice moods and relaxed states by paying attention to what takes them into a good place. And then once you know what takes someone into a good place, you can encourage them and help them to have it. And then, people begin to feel better sooner. So part 2 is going to explain the neurology of this a little bit more, and then part 3 is going to talk about how to be able to step yourself into a feeling of deep relaxation where you have almost a complete absence of worry, stress, and anxiety and fears. And quite literally, all of those things leave you like steam from the kettle, leaving you to relax. So part 2 and 3 coming up in a moment. Thanks.